All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And today we are going to go back into our series, Choose Your Path. And today we're going to be talking to Jake from Pokenomics about some of the higher end collectibles buying and selling. Of course, the purpose of these interviews is to actually get some information out for people that are looking at the hobby, new to the hobby, or are looking for a direction. And this is to help them see what the different facets and niches are in the Pokemon or TCG hobbies as we move forward. So, Jake, I will give you some time to introduce yourself and give yourself background to everybody.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Nice to get a chance to just like hang out and talk. Yeah, I run the channel Pokenomics, the YouTube channel, and just a big collector, huge collector. Really got into this stuff as an adult about 7 years ago. Obviously, collected sports cards and Pokemon cards, and those are my two main ones as a kid. But yeah, I got back to collecting this and a number of other TCGs and CCGs and sports cards and different sorts of things over the last 7 years. But definitely Pokemon has been my main focus and is, the majority of my collection. Yeah, just an enthusiast and collector. Obviously, my channel is focused on talking about the market and trying to speculate on what might happen and having those types of kind of fun conversations and debates and etc.
Yeah, and I think most of the viewers on here probably have seen your channel, which is good. They see a familiar face on here, of course. Great information on the market, of course, just as always, good discussion. You bring up good debate in a nice, clean format, so it's not toxic or reprehensive to people. It's just a nice, good talking. Well, it's now the next thing that I got here, of course, is there's a series of ace questions that I've tried to keep consistent between most of the hobbies. Granted, some differences between each one, and so we can just go ahead and start into the questions. And at the end, of course, we do any kind of other questions that come up during a discussion, and sometimes we come up with some as we're going through that are good information to add on. So first of all, I'll just start off with the first set question in order to get going, which is, what was your or is your current occupation while buying and selling collectibles?
I was a social worker, a mental health licensed social worker, LCSW, and a mental health counselor clinician, doing individual therapy and sort of in like an outpatient setting, as well as running groups, therapy groups, and also worked for a hospital and did some emergency work through there. I did a number of different things. Did that for about 10-ish, 11 years. And then recently, just a few months ago, I actually decided that I'm going to take a little bit of a break from being a therapist. Probably not that long. I'll probably go back and maybe start a private practice or take a few hours in a clinic. One of the nice things about being a social worker is it's very flexible, and it's very easy to do like part-time work, or with an LICSW, you can do private practice. So that's what I did. But 3-4 months, I guess now it's maybe 4 or 5 months ago, something like that. I left my job and I took just a couple of months off. Obviously, I run my Patreon and I do a lot of Pokemon stuff. So I still was working probably 6 hours a day or so, buying, selling, researching, doing content, et cetera, et cetera. But that stuff is very fun and mostly it does not feel like work. But yeah, recently took a job. I recently took a job working as a financial analyst, doing wealth management, but also analyzing real estate deals, which is something that I'm interested in getting into. And it's a job at an agency, a relatively small agency, and it's fun. I love markets. I love games. It's one big sort of game basically, and I'm learning something different. While frankly, like there's quite a bit of stress, as people may know, in the financial markets now. But I can tell you that it doesn't compare to being a social worker, at least for me, in terms of like the human stress and responsibility of trying to help people and sort of, it can be difficult hearing people's stories and you know, being with people's trauma and that type of stuff for many many years, and this is gives me a little bit of a break while also keeping my mind like very engaged. But what funded the majority of my Pokemon purchases was just like a social work salary mixed with a lot of saving and aggressiveness, living at home, combined with lots of like flipping and reading and all that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Nothing, no huge. It's all relative, I guess. What is a huge amount of money is all relative, I guess.
Yeah,
But
that's exactly as weird as it is to say that. Warren Buffett, $1 million is nothing, but to us, sometimes $1,000 seems like a ton. So I mean, it's just all relative to where you are.
yeah, and I made a good salary at these places, you know, reasonable salary, and my expenses were pretty low. You know, so making 70,000, $80,000 a year and then having very low expenses really allowed you, particularly before the last few years, to be pretty aggressive in the Pokemon market and collect a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things is that's like I even told my wife. I said if we didn't have a big family, 3 kids already and everything going on, when I got back in 2019, I probably would have been a lot more aggressive. But just like anything, you can't be aggressive when you've got other expenditures that have to be taken care of before for collectibles and outside items to get put into the mix.
For sure. Yeah, you know, I still don't have kids. Certainly didn't have kids then. I'm a little bit closer to potentially doing that type of thing now, but still don't. You know,
Yeah.
and back then I was more definitely more in a mindset of like I'm not having kids right this second, you know, or in a
Yeah.
year or two. So I felt like I could be a little bit more aggressive maybe with my collecting or speculating or investing habits.
Yeah, when you don't have that kind of expenditures out there, you definitely can be. I know that I wouldn't trade them for a world, but they are very expensive to have kids, especially with 3 of them. So it really adds up pretty fast.
Sure.
Um, Next question I got is, what progression did you make in Pokemon or other TCGs before really focusing more on the high end or higher collectibles?
So I think that so I've never owned or gone or I have bid on and gone after like some of the highest, you know, the top tier collectibles in the Pokemon hobby. But the majority of what I've bought over the years has been set cards, kind of lower middle trophy cards. And these cards, you know, even though I was going after them in tens, like the most that I was ever spending 3, 4 years ago when I was doing the bulk of my buying in Pokemon, the most I ever spent was $9,000 on a card during that time. I did buy some large collections, but they came with a lot of cards. But for like an individual card, the most I ever spent was 9,000, and the majority of cards I was buying was probably $100, $200, $300, and back then you could get, you know, some pretty key WotC nines, WotC tens, you know, for those prices, and gold stars and things like that. Still kind of get a lot of that for those prices now, but obviously it was cheaper back then, and so for me, I guess like I started in the high end ish, and it's all relative because like it's definitely not the crazy high end, but like the first purchase I ever made was like a PSA 10 Blaine's Charizard. The first purchase, sorry, that was the first purchase I made after I opened a bunch of booster boxes, modern booster boxes. I started opening up a bunch of
Yeah.
modern booster boxes, which was fun, and then that was the first PSA card that I bought. And so at the time, I think I paid $225 or something, or $250 for that, which is obviously very low price for that. It was also a
Wow.
really good deal at the time. I was really happy about it. Um, that was obviously many, many years ago now. And for me, that was a lot of money. That was the most I had ever spent in the hobby. And when I did it, I was like, am I foolish? Am I stupid for spending this? And then as I kind of researched more and I got more comfortable and more engaged, I actually began to feel and buy more and more. I began to feel like this stuff is like really, really undervalued. And
Yeah.
like there's only couple hundred of this, card, or a couple, 100 or 50 of this PSA 10, and I can buy it for only $100 or a few $100. And like, this is the fifth or sixth best set card, or third best set card, or fourth best, depending on the card in like the hobby, these types of cards. And I felt as though the market cap on them was so small as compared to some other more established hobbies. And so I increasingly became more confident, and I increasingly started spending more money. But it wasn't so much that I was spending like a lot more than that on each card. I bought a couple $1,000 cards and multiple $1,000 cards here and there throughout it, but it was more like, even back then, I was spending like $10,000 a month. Probably there were months where I probably spent 10, 15,000. And then once in a while I might make a big purchase and spend more. And at that time, that was a huge amount of money. I mean, that's still a lot of money for sure. Now, I was also selling, so it wasn't just, putting that straight in. So I did that for a while, and then I really stopped selling for a while, and I just started like holding everything. I was
Hoarding it all.
Yeah. And that was probably in like 2019, 2020, during that period. And I was making enough money at my job that I could just sort of continue buying. So I just kept buying and kept putting it away. And so that's, how did I get into high end? I guess I sort of always was sort of into it and interested. I did, I've never bid on an illustrator or tried to buy an illustrator or something like that. I have bid on and tried to buy a number of some Pikachu trophies and key, tropical winds, lucky stadiums, key, trophy Kangaskhan. But never an illustrator. And I did bid over 100,000 once on a card, but I did not win it. That's the only time I've ever considered spending more than $100,000 on a card. I've never made $100,000 purchase, like singular purchase of a collection. I think the most expensive collection I ever bought was probably 25,000, somewhere in there. So that's sort of, and again, it's all relative, because those could be insane numbers to you, or those could be like moderate numbers to you, depending on what type of business you have or what type of collector you have. So
yeah, and for me, the most expensive Pokemon card I've ever purchased is around $950. I think it was just under $1,000. It was the heaviest PSA 10 I purchased. Just for relativeness, I just don't have the capital like to go to that level. When I started out, I mean, I really just took $3,000 and went, okay, I can use this out of my budgets, and this is what I've got. Sure. And 2019 started, was purchasing a lot of sealed product and starting to kind of lurk at singles. Like I said, I always kicked myself because I could have bought all the black and white booster boxes, because my thought was to go back and start purchasing back and kind of use that as my splitting point. And I just kind of left, because it's like I had them all on a shopping cart, and I still have the cart like saved, like an image of it, so I had all the numbers. Mm-hmm. And I laugh because that's what people always say, black and white's so expensive, if you would have invested, you would have made all this money and beat the stock market. It's like, no, 2019 you wouldn't have, because you could have bought all the black and white, the whole series of them, for like $2,300. It was like 13 booster boxes of black and white series for 23 something with shipping.
It wasn't that easy to find, to find a lot of this stuff too. There, not that much came on the market. I mean, I assume if you were really, really bullish, you could put out some really aggressive offers and you could hunt a lot of it down that people were holding. But it's not like a lot of the middle gen stuff, as someone who literally bought every level X or tried to buy, because I lost a number of auctions and different sorts of things, but I was basically a bidder on every single, auction that I could. Mm-hmm. I accumulated maybe 300 to 400 level X cards or something like that, maybe a little bit more in 5 years, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot with how low that is. But that's probably the equivalent of if you were to buy like one or two of each booster box or something in terms of price or difficulty to find or investment. And it's not something that like even if you were like spending all of your time like focus on doing it, it's not like you can like own them all. It's very difficult to track them all down.
And even when you could find them, like that place had all of them together in one thing, and look at relative price. Now, equivalently, that would be a huge purchase if you were to go and spend that money today on them same boxes. Once again, it comes down to that relativeness. How much money do you have in your pocket to be able to do it? Try and keep things in check and not try to overspend. And for me, my starting point was $3,000. For someone else like yourself or some other people, it may be $20,000. It just depends on where you're at in your life and where you are with your expenditures, and that can really make a big decision on where you fall. And that's why it's kind of interesting talking to someone that does purchase higher end stuff. Is like you said, it's all relative. For you, for your mindset, $10,000 may not be too expensive for a trophy card. Well, if you told me it was $10,000, it's like, wow, that's everything I've got in my accounts right now to be able to purchase that. So
yeah, I mean, I think $10,000 is a massive amount of money. And I think that for me, I'm selling constantly, right? And if I'm spending that, first of all, I'm still spending money that I sold at the peak, right? For me, I like buying a lot of something that I feel really confident about. And so part of what I really liked about Pokemon back then was at my, me spending $5,000-$10,000 a month, I could buy every single good deal that came up. So I could just accumulate everything, basically. Yep. And that's a good feeling in a market, because you're sort of playing in the right size market. But I was also spending basically every dollar I had all the time too. So it was sort of free, basically. So it was a perfect match of like the amount of money I had versus the amount of deals that were constantly coming up, or things that I felt were good deals for me. And that's really a nice mix. Now the Pokemon market is way too expensive for me to ever buy all the things that I want or all of the good deals that I want right now. It's way too expensive. I go on and I see deals that I think are pretty good, or cards that I think are undervalued or reasonably valued quite a lot, and I have to let someone else buy it. Almost every deal these days, because I'm still, even though I have more money now and a bigger collection, I'm still putting in about the same and comfortable spending about the same percentage. And that's where I'm at today. And obviously I've also put a lot of other money in other TCGs and CCGs and cards. And that was a transition I made after Pokemon became very expensive, in large part.
Yeah. Started to shift into other areas for sure, with pricing. Because, I mean, you actually look back on it, Pokemon got hit pretty hard. And, the other TCGs, not all of them moved similarly, but yet they all still kind of moved somewhat. So there were some opportunities in some other TCGs, even myself looking at Magic. Magic had some movement too on some of the sets, especially some of the older vintage stuff from there were doing really well back. Even Pokemon was so expensive, you could buy twice or three times as much in the lower TCGs, such as Magic or those kind of sets, and then still come out almost equal to, because you purchase more allotments of it versus putting all your eggs in one basket in Pokemon. So there was definitely some opportunities out there if you were looking at other areas. So next question, you pretty much answered the third one, which is what was your final factor, because that was pretty much covered inside of there too. If you had a relative amount of money you made relatively per hour working in the TCG, so if you work 6 hours, do you relatively build your collection by $1,000 or $2,000 or $50?
So are we counting money that I take out of the hobby, or also the value of my collection?
The value of your collection also. Okay. So we can use value and money you make.
Let me try to do a little bit of math here and see how accurate I can get this. Okay, so
you probably got a spreadsheet.
All right, so I'm gonna say, okay, so times 4. So that's gonna be, I'm gonna say, I have made about $190 an hour, something like that.
So $190 an hour roughly and like I said, it's all relative. I mean, I'm not going to pin anybody down to a number, but yeah, I mean, that's I mean, that's what you could potentially be looking at in the field if you could work your way up to this kind of levels. And that's not necessarily for everybody. Some people are not going to do that, but I'm not going to say that if you go and jump into high-end collectibles today, you're going to make that, but it gives you a relative perspective from someone that's doing it, what kind of potentials are out there.
I mean, that's someone who was extremely aggressive right
Mm-hmm.
before the bubble, had really good timing, sold a decent amount at it, not enough. I should have sold more, blah, blah, blah. But I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with basically what I sold. And also dabbled in a lot of other CCGs and TCGs that also did well at decent times. So like I think a lot of that's luck and timing and effort. I would definitely not expect someone to I don't even know if that would be possible for any human being to do over the next 10 years. If the
Yeah.
Pokemon market would have to cooperate, is what I mean by
Mm-hmm.
that. Like you could be, first of all, like no person does everything right, right? Like there's always going to be mistakes and errors. But even if you do pretty well, the Pokemon market would have to sort of cooperate extremely well with you. So there'd have to be another huge move up in TCGs and CCGs and interest. And you would have had to like hold a lot of inventory and not just sort of like flip. Now, if you're really good at flipping and you have lots of, like I wonder what like Rusty makes per hour. Like I bet
Yeah.
Rusty makes, like not including his collection and all of the
Mm-hmm.
increase, but if we just said like right now, how much is Rusty making an hour? Because of all of his like flipping activity, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to see how much that was. I'd be surprised if it was that high, but it could be that high. But again, this is not because of like this is really just because of the increase in the value of
Yeah.
all these cards and the fact that I'm like a bit of a hoarder combined with someone who just like was very, very aggressive and bought like every single thing and tried to buy it like as much as I possibly could for years before it
Mm-hmm.
went up. So um, I think
And
if you made like $30 an hour, that would be great. To be honest with
yeah,
you, that would be
and
phenomenal.
I've gone through and figured it out too since 2019, and now just relatively finally took the time to even answer this question more precisely with myself, and just to give a perspective with me doing selling singles and doing the mark, just running small end stuff like flipping product and singles on TCG Player and doing that kind of stuff. I'm coming out to about $8.76 an hour right now is what I'm getting out of it. So just running the grind pretty much, I'm making $8.76 an hour just grinding it out down here. So I mean, you're right. I mean, if you're making $30 an hour up on the high end, versus me, as an example, running it on the low end, grinding it out with the small stuff, there's that would be a pretty relative looking, way to look at it. Like you said, 109, crazy probably now, but
Yeah, and again, like probably over the last 6 months, I'm like flat.
yeah,
Like I've made zero money for all of the time that I put in outside of like the Patreon and the things that I do, but like because the things that I'm like buying or speculating in now are like mostly flat. Some have gone up a little bit. The some Star Wars stuff. There's some things I've made some money, but not that much money. And when we say money, it's also like I haven't sold a lot of it, so I haven't realized a
yeah,
lot of this. It's sitting in my collection. If we were talking about actually how much money I've taken out of the hobby or lived on, it would be a much smaller amount per
yeah.
hour, much smaller per hour. I'm holding. I've taken. My collection is worth way more than the money that I've taken out of the hobby. Way more.
Oh, yeah, that's just it. I mean, even myself, I'm going by collection money, what I've actually pretty much my dollar amount I've made, and then also on top of it, what my collection is valued at, and that's about where I'm at. So, it's not a huge amount of money for when you think about it compared to a job or something like that. It's nowhere near being in a full time job category, but there's definitely some opportunities there, and they're still there today. I mean, if you sit there and want to grind, or if you really want to do a lot of time looking at the high end investables and really looking at sealed product and those kind of things, there are some niches that are doing extremely well when it comes down to these high end items and low end items. I mean, there's look at the Umbreon. I mean, nobody would have thought that the Evolving Skies Umbreon would go this far. I mean, we knew it was going to be a good chase card, but nowhere in my wildest dreams did I think that a year later that card would be sitting at $400 raw. I mean, I would have been
Yeah.
happy at 100.
I am not a business in Pokemon. I don't run a
Mhm.
Pokemon business,
No.
so I don't know like exactly how well Dan is doing. Nick, we do know because we did our Patreon thing, and he went into detail. We don't know because that's just like a small.
Yeah.
That's just a portion of his business that he went through with us.
Yep.
But like I don't. So I'm really not someone who has a clue of like if I tried to do this as a business, I don't know how much I could make. I really have no
No.
idea, and what I would be able to get paid per hour. And I I don't know if I'd be able to make $60,000-$70,000 a year, even working huge hours. And so that would probably be more like $20 an hour, $18 an hour, $25 an hour, working more than 40 hours a week potentially. Quite a bit more. Now that doesn't
Yeah.
include the content and the other, that's just the cards
Mhm.
itself. But so I really don't want people to hear the number and think I'm saying like I'm going to repeat that in any way, or that's repeatable for
Nope.
people out there, or that like you can set up a business that's making you $190 an hour. Now PokeRev, if you have a
Yeah.
successful channel and you're selling packs and you have members, like those
Yeah.
guys can, I'm sure, are making more than $190 per hour. I would assume like quite a bit more.
Yeah.
But those are very, very small portion of people. And again, they're not making it on the cards and investing and speculating and flipping the cards. They're making it on their personalities and their content.
Yeah. And I
That's
mean,
my
that's
opinion.
just,
I could be wrong. There might be guys out there who are like flipping high end stuff and they're still making a ton. I also know a lot of guys who are flipping high end who like lost a lot of money over the last 6 months. Now they're still up a lot total, but they also like got upside down on some cards. So,
yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to say. I mean, it's all based on work ethic, of course. It depends on a lot of luck. When you're working with collectibles, there's a lot of luck that the market's going to hold and things are going to happen, that the macro economies hold. And once again, even me making 875, I couldn't do that as a business if it was actually in a full business format where I had to pay insurance, so all the things that go into running a business,
Sure.
it would be a completely different number. That's not running a business. That's just me doing it as a side hobby in the house, kind of like you. There, you don't have all those other expenses. I wouldn't tell anybody to go jump into any of this stuff as a business opportunity unless you have really dove into all the different things that might be costs. Buying space, websites. You got all the other expenses that may come up when you're trying to actually do this as a full-time business. So it's just one of those things that you definitely it's a leap if you're going to do it. And if you want to see that, definitely go back to Mason and Dan because they both go over that, what kind of a leap it is to make that decision to go into it.
And the big benefit of being like a collector is like I don't need any of these cards to go up in value. Like I would it be, is it nice? Is it fun to try to speculate and see if you can
Mm-hmm.
be correctly guess things? Sure, but you're setting collection goals and you're working to sort of complete them and you're
Yep.
enjoying that process. And if the cards don't go up in value at all, I will still get pleasure and enjoy reaching those collection goals. And I think that's what drives me fundamentally. It's the biggest driver, beyond any of the market stuff.
Yeah, and same thing. My biggest driver is I try and use my sales, whatever I sell, pretty much goes right back into the hobby to buy a collection piece I want to get. So whether it's old steel products, I mean, I've been even trying to work into some deals on some gold stars now. I've been trying to go back to, because gold stars were really the last generation that I really played with, which I got out in 2006. So gold, I never even saw level X's, until I came back into the hobby and I was like, wow, level X's are cool. But gold stars are still one of the things I'm working for. And as everybody's seen, them prices on gold stars are still, they're not cheap. To be able to get a decent one in near mint condition bra is still an expensive endeavor.
For
So that's
sure.
kind of been my collection goals, is I'm using my market analysis and my stuff I purchase for investment stuff to buy those higher, to work towards those gold stars and the higher end things without
Yeah,
spending money out of my account.
I do the same stuff. It's fun.
It is. It's all just the market. Learning how to read things, get ahead of it, and try and capitalize on it, and try and stay partial to stuff. Because the hardest part I get is sometimes I get some things and it's like I really don't want to give this up. I like it. I know what I wanted to do with it, but it's really hard sometimes. We'll go and list it for sale because you like it.
I deal with that all the time. I try and plan for it by buying doubles, but again, it costs money to buy doubles. It costs money to buy extras of things, and I have let go of a few, and are looking to potentially let go of a few singular items in my collection that I don't have doubles of, like low pop PSA 10 cards, because there's just I just can't keep up with the prices of everything. Is the truth. And I because I'm collecting a lot of other TCGs too, and not just Pokemon, it's things are just too expensive. So it gets to the point where I just have to sell in order to keep getting the cards that I want, or putting it into bigger cards that I'm looking to get over time, for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean that's a safe way to do it is if you can kind of keep it in its own contained bubble, then typically keeps the family a little happier too when you're not trying to remove money from your personal accounts.
Sure.
So, all right. Well, next question I got for you, Jake, is what are the best connections you have made in high-end collectibles markets?
Like the best relationships.
Yes. Yep.
Hmm. Oh, I don't know. I've met a number of like players who play the TCG and won trophies and different sorts of things. And I've had over the last few years. Recently, I've had like three players introduce themselves, and I've met them and talk to me about selling their physical trophies, their cards. It's been really neat meeting them, and certainly like those relationships and those connections are great to develop if you're after the cards that or the items that they have. It often buying directly from that person is uh, can be the best price you might be able to get for an item. Not always though.
No.
um, so those relationships. I'm in like a Discord. I don't know if I should say the name, but there's like a trophy Discord that I'm in with a lot of guys who are constantly updating everyone on what's going on with the trophies, to the point where like I just have to like check that Discord. I rarely have to I rarely, if ever, find something before then. They're sort of so passionate and are constantly looking and discussing every price, and so I have a lot of like resources and Discords that I'm and different things that I refer to kind of, because there's just way too much information, and I literally try to follow basically everything in this hobby and a bunch of other hobbies. And I also have like this is not my full time job, so it's just an intense passion and hobby. So using those types of resources, having relationships with people who I really trust, who I know have really good, accurate information, who like reach out to like the auction houses and the like they get the best ground floor information, and these people are not looking for clicks, and they're very like passionate about bringing like accurate information. I rely on people like that quite a bit. And What else? And then yeah, a number of people, a
Yeah.
lot influencers that everyone knows, like I've talked to about trophy cards. Try to buy some from them sometimes. They've tried to buy some from me sometimes. All
Yeah.
that type of stuff. There's a lot of I most of the most expensive purchases I've ever made have been through Instagram and through Discords with people that are known in the hobby that I know or that other people have vouched for. And so I think that that's definitely the way to go when we're talking about these huge cards. If you can, is to really know then you really don't have to worry nearly as much about getting scammed or about something terrible happening.
Yeah. And I mean, I just bring it up because, like, for myself, I've even used you as a resource too when I had that big collection one time. Sometimes it's just good to have these connections for people that you know and trust, in that if I send it to you, you're going to give me your honest opinion about it and go, we need more pictures, or we need more information, or, this is maybe something to stay away from because this, and this, or, just those kind of information things are just huge in this hobby when you're continually moving forward.
And people come to me with collections or high-end cards, and I send them to other people that because they're not quite right for me, but I think they might be right for someone else. And people do, like my friends do the same for me. If they know I'm looking for a certain card, and that it comes to them, they're generous and share that with me. So Those types of relationships are really key, and it literally just comes with like time and being engaged. Come to events, hang out in comment sections,
Mm-hmm.
introduce yourself. I don't. I think almost all the people you see on the screen, like if you are not like at all interested and you're just like a nice person and you're not going to be like, you know,
Yeah.
super rude or like too needy, like everyone's like more than happy. Like people bend over backwards, I think, to teach and share and help.
And yeah, I mean that's just it. I think that you see the YouTube clicks, and I mean as YouTube creators, you're always trying to get those clicks, and sometimes, like you said, it you worry that when you talk to some of us that you're going to get the information is just for a click or for your subscription or something like that. But a lot of times, my personal best connections have no affiliation with YouTube whatsoever. A lot of them are just people in the community I've met, I've talked to them, Discord pages, being at an LGS. I mean, I've got a lot of connections even locally that were down in our bigger town down south in Eau Claire. We're at the big tournaments and things that they would put on at the local LGS. You met them, yeah, they were from the Twin Cities or they were from Chicago and they were up in the area because they knew some people in there. And those are the connections that really do grow. I mean, they're really good connections to have for getting information, finding a card. I'm looking for a collectible right now, and they know right where to go. Well, yeah, go talk to this person, or they'll send them right to you. Yeah, oh, you're looking for that card? Yeah, I'll have so and so get a hold of you.
I think one thing that's so important is like patience and like
Mm-hmm.
these relationships that you build over time and being active on channels and in discords, et cetera, like with time, like those relationships will blossom into fruitful things. One thing I would say is like,
Yeah.
you don't need to rush relationships. You don't need to rush anything because if you want to be in this hobby like me for like the foreseeable future, for whatever, my whole life maybe, or off and on throughout my life, or whatever it's going to be, like it's very much the long game and you can accomplish so much over many years. So I think often people underestimate how much they can accomplish over a long period of time and overestimate, or they're sort of like they're so like I need all the connections and I need the biggest collection now and I
Yeah.
need it's like no, like take your time, like build up, build your relationships up, build your collections up, have more and more fun over time.
Absolutely.
There's there's no rush. There's no
Yeah.
rush.
Some of the best connections I have are ones that I've been working on since I got back in the hobby from 2019. It took years. I mean,
Sure.
even the one with the LGS, I talked to Mason about it. I was talking when 2019 I started tournament play again. So I was at my LGS every weekend with my son doing tournaments and getting involved and talking to the owner of the LGS and getting familiar. And then, like I said, it really took last year when all that product got really pushed out the door. Because I talked to him about maybe finding a way that we could work out to get a better pricing on some product because I was looking to purchase some things to open for tournaments because I was looking for playable cards and Jacob, of course, loves opening it. And that was always a fun thing. But I said, hey, I can buy a case if could you give me a better price on it? And then the relationship took from 2019 to 2021 finally really blossomed when it was like, okay, we got piled full of stuff. I got all this money stuck into Pokemon. Hey, can you buy some of this from me? I'll sell it to you at cost. And after I did that, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'll buy, however many booster boxes from you. How many cases you want me to buy? They gave me a number. I picked them up. And after that it just built that relationship that, hey, I can count on this person to purchase this. And they didn't force it. I wasn't like trying to, jam. I need this to build that relationship. It just happened over a little bit of time and circumstance sometimes really makes it go.
And even like my closest relationships with people in the hobby, like Dan, for example, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we will likely we'll be a lot closer in 5 years or 8 years. Like a lot of us only know each other 2, 3, 4 years, and
Mm-hmm.
have only been doing this for a little bit. Like people in the sports world and other worlds, like these guys have relationships with each other 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, going to shows,
Yes.
doing all sorts of stuff together. So I think too, it's like understand that like it's really early and also like anyone out there can become like friends with us, like, and hang out, and like you don't need to feel like you're behind the eight ball, or like everyone already has their like their cliques or their friends or the people that like it's very early in Pokemon, if Pokemon becomes something that is like really sustainable like that, which I mean it may shrink. Now it's not going to disappear. There'll still be people doing it and engaging. It just might get smaller. Hopefully not. It'd be great if it remained the same size or got bigger or whatever. But either way, I think having that sort of mindset will make you worry less and feel less anxious about any. It's particularly important, if you're new and you're feeling like, and I get these questions a lot, like you're feeling like you're behind the eight ball, you don't have any relationships, you don't have any knowledge, you don't have any cards, and it's like, and the sky is falling, and it's going to zero. So what do I do? It's like that,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And it's like patience, just be engaged, hang out, talk, ask questions. You'll grow more comfortable over time and develop relationships over time that are meaningful and valuable to you.
Even in this hobby, even out of the YouTube groups or in the Discord groups or any of them, there are very few people that I know of in this hobby who disconnect, that don't want to discuss. I know most of us, if you were to ask us questions, even myself, I have no problem. I can talk you to death about TCGs if you ask me questions in person.
That is what being passionate about something is. We can talk.
I know.
I did a live stream for 4 hours with Colson yesterday, and it felt like 5 minutes to us. And that's sort of the magic of like just talking about something that you're passionate about.
And that's what I always laugh. Like I do a live with you, or I do a live with someone on here, and my wife always goes, "How did you do that for 3? You were down there for 3 hours. What were you doing?" Just having a good conversation. I said it doesn't seem like you're. To me, it feels like you've been in here for 5-10 minutes, and you look at the clock, and it was 3 hours later, and it's like, wow. It's always enjoyable, and I haven't. That's just it. I think that's the difference between people that are in this for the money side of things only versus the people that are in it to, we want to make a little bit of profit and get our collections built up and do these things, but we're actually passionate about it, and we love to just sit here and talk and discuss and tell you what we know. I mean, there isn't very much I won't tell you that I know. Mm-hmm. It's just that's just the way that a lot of us are in this hobby. It's a passion more than in a hobby, than the income, and the market part comes second.
For sure. 100%.
Next question I have for you. What is one mistake you made that you could advise?
Oh, sorry. I can tell you on that last point too, that like, if this hobby became like miserable or not fun, I would leave, and I think so, now I would feel probably to completely work through the thought process on that. I think I would feel some responsibility and would want to feel like, the channel or the community or these types of things were like in good hands. And I wouldn't want anyone to like be upset or offended by the fact that I like was no longer passionate, but that would be my goal. It would be like, this isn't, I'm not doing this for as you said perfectly, like primarily for the money. Right. So if the fun and the enjoyment and the ease at which like the passion disappeared, then, I would find something that I had more passion for, and I would encourage other people to do the same. And I do think that passion can come and go a little bit, and taking breaks is not panicking, healthy. Not passionate about something, but taking breaks can always be healthy. You don't have to quit something forever, but
but
I've really felt like almost the entire time that I've been in the hobby, I felt like there's never been a moment where I thought, I wish I never did this ever. Like zero of that, which is cool, to.
My only regret is that I got out for so long. I played tournaments. I was involved with it all the way up until 2006. I loved it. I loved being involved. I loved being in that atmosphere. It was always a lot of fun to do it. And then, like I said, just like a lot of people my age, life kind of draws you other directions with career and then family, and then you start orientating different ways. But, coming back to it, I don't regret anything that I've done. I love this hobby. I love this in general. And it's, like you said, if it became a burden and no longer enjoyable, I would just, you'd see my YouTube channel, probably, I'd probably say a goodbye video, or I'm going to be hitting the road to go do something else. And that would probably be the end of me in the Pokemon world. I just
Yeah.
not nowhere near there. I love the hobby. I love everybody I run into. I enjoy the discussions, the information. There's a lot of things out there that's definitely huge for this community and for the hobby in general.
Yep.
So, um, next question I got then is, what is one mistake you made that you could advise others to avoid in this area?
Oh,
Oh,
I think that it's so difficult. And I'm working through this myself right now because I both am happy at how aggressive I was because of how things have turned out. I also feel like I have had quite a bit of FOMO at times, or quite a bit of um addiction-y feelings of like I'm really afraid that this item will disappear. I won't ever own it, and I really want to own it, and it's really fun to buy it. And I think that um I have overspent at times to the point where I didn't feel comfortable. And it never got to the point where it was like I'm like in like serious financial danger, but more feeling like I'm a little bit out of control with my spending is probably the best way to put it. And I don't feel completely comfortable with what I'm doing. And so I battle that sometimes because I have a play or something that I think is like so great that might make me so much money, or that I think is like, or a card that like almost never comes up and I really want it for my collection, like really badly, or some combination of those things often. And um, but I get a little bit of that discomfort of like, I wasn't really budgeting for that. I wasn't planning on spending that much. And then I have to think, okay, if I do spend that much, then I have to sell a certain amount. And so there are times when I would buy something and put it on like a credit card. I have some large credit cards that I don't have to pay for like 6 months till the interest kicks in, things like that.
yeah,
So I would buy something like that and then I would need to figure out exactly how to get the money. Now I can always sell stock or something, or liquidate, or like there are immediate things that I can do that are more liquid, but it would put myself in situations where I would then have to like spend the next 3, 4 months kind of like maneuvering in order to like pay that off and get it prepared.
yeah,
And that would at times cause some amount of stress. Now I'm really happy I own the cards. So I can't say that it was like a complete mistake. And it was never for a card that I then like was like, I don't even like that card and I wish I had never
yeah,
done that. It doesn't feel that way, but I think patience is really important. But it's tough, man. I mean, when those really good deals, those really tough cards come up and it pushes you like a little bit more than you want to spend, it's a dilemma of should I or shouldn't I? But I do think that it's a good thing for people to reflect on. And I think it goes back to that point we were talking about before of just like patience. Like
hmm,
try to have patience, and don't let the addictive qualities of the hobby take you over to where you're not enjoying it. Like you should feel like you're in control, like your higher self, your better self is in control of what you're doing, and that you're really enjoying it, not that you're being led by like, I need everything and I need it
yeah,
now, and I need to make all that money and I need to be competitive and catch up and own all those cards. And I think that stuff generally will lead you to making purchases that leave you in an uncomfortable situation. Maybe not some, maybe you can fix it, and not something that necessarily is going to cause any long-term damage, but just a little bit of emotional discomfort. And I certainly have made that mistake.
yeah. And I think both of our channels have probably talked about, the exact same thing. Don't go and overspend yourself. When it comes down to it, don't FOMO out, because chances are is that if you wait, it'll come back. I mean, I understand sometimes when it goes to like trophy cards and some of those very, very, very small pool items, that you can definitely get to that point where it shows up once every 5 to 10 years. Then you almost gotta go if you're gonna go. If you really want it, you might end up spending a little bit too much. But in general, most of the stuff, there's enough of an amount out there that they do come back more frequently than maybe you think they do. I've even looked at some of the like Charizard first edition cards and things like that, and people think that they don't come up for sale very often because it's such this high end collectible item. But then you sit there and you actually watch, and you can almost always find one for sale on one of the sites. If you go through eBay or you go through, Heritage or PWCC, there's always a PSA 10 first edition Charizard hiding out there somewhere that's for sale right now. So it's really not as rare for sale as you think it is. So, all right, next one I got for you, Jake, is number one most important thing if you are in high-end collectibles market. So what's the number one thing that you would say you need to have or should have in order to be in this market?
Money.
I was gonna say besides money. That's an easy one. Money. Yeah.
Just have a ton of money, and then you don't need any knowledge.
Just buy everything.
You just hire someone to buy everything for you. You could just come in, you could buy out the whole market. Yeah.
And then they could get the box wrapped by BCE and
whatever
just what? Who cares?
You can get some fake stuff, but then you just move on to the next thing. Yeah.
Just nothing happened.
Yeah. I think so. Other than that, what's the most important things? I don't know if there's one most important thing, but really money, but I think really understanding, when you're spending a lot of money on something, really taking the time to understand how this item became expensive. Why is it expensive? And what I'm talking about, your market research, your fundamentals research, you're trying to understand the price history, the narratives that were created around it. Because a lot of people some people lost a lot of money on trophy cards over the last few years who bought them. And a number of these people were very fresh into the hobby, and I don't think really did a lot of research on them or really understood their price history, because there were a lot of cards that were bought at prices that those of us who have been in the hobby a little while and have quite a longer relationship with some of these cards were very shocked by the prices that people were willing to pay. And, generally speaking, when someone's been in the hobby 6 months and they're buying a PC card, from someone who's been in the hobby 10 years and has a deep relationship with that card, you should ask yourself, why is this person who normally would never be willing to sell this card willing to sell at this price? And now, again, if the new person is buying it because they're a collector and they have a ton of money, great. Because to get certain cards out of my collection, you would have to pay so far over market. It would be silly, right? And so that's great when that happens. But a number of these people bought those cards as a flip, as an investment, and then ended up selling them at 60, 70% lower 8 months later, just a year later. Okay. So now part of that was also just the general downturn in the market, the fact that we were in a bubble. There were plenty of set cards you could have bought, not some set cards you could have bought that would have seen similar decreases in value, but to buy a single card for $200,000, $300,000 or $30,000 and $40,000 and lose 70, 80% of your value in 8 months when you're buying it as an investment, that's pretty rough. And maybe they did know everything about it and they were still willing to sort of take that risk, and that's fine. And they're willing to sort of take that gamble. But that would be the first thing I would say is really understand the price history, really understand the narratives that created that card. Why do people like that card? What's the history? What's the story? Yep. I think that there are some trophy cards that don't make a lot of sense to me as to why people want them so much or why they're willing to spend. Now, that doesn't mean that they're ever going to come down to from the price, because other people may just continue to like them. But I would never invest or speculate on something that I thought was overvalued. I mean, that should be just rule number one for any investor. If you think something is way overvalued, do not invest in it, unless you have some sort of insider info that you want to trade on, that it's going to go up or something.
Yeah.
So that's where I would start. The second is certainly having relationships and connections, friends, being able to have a bit of a reputation, being trustworthy. People will come to you with big collections, with big items, and that's really helpful often. Some of the best deals I've done, the best deals I've ever done have actually just been through eBay from random people. But some of the better deals I've done definitely are private collections and
Mhm.
people reaching out to me and us working something out because they trust me or they like me or they, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I mean that's to me has always been the the key is that you can get some good things on eBay. You can find good pricing sometimes on eBay, but in general, I found that if I can talk to someone or learn someone through my connections that has something, I can usually even get it better than an eBay price. Like you said, I think we all have anybody that's a collector has that collection piece that if you want it, you're going to spend way more of a market price. And when you see some of them items sell out of people's collections, like you said, that should throw up a big red flag. Why did they sell that, and why is it 4 or 5 times over market price? And just because it happened doesn't mean that you should go try and find four of them, at that price because you think something big is going to happen. Because realistically, it might just be someone really wanted it, someone really had it, and someone paid way too much to get it out of the other person's shelf. And that's
Mhm.
could be all that it comes down to at the end of the day. It doesn't mean it's an investment or something to jump into. It just means someone with a lot of money got something that they probably really wanted.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Oh. All right. Well, last question I got for you, we're already to the end of the list, is going to be knowing what you do now. Would you still go into high end collectibles or would you focus your time and energy elsewhere?
So I think most of, it depends how we define high end. I mean, I am
Yeah.
buying $2 cards all the time, $5, $15,
Yeah.
25, 50, 100, 200, 500. Like I love cards and there's tons of stuff that I really like. And there are tons of other hobbies that things are very cheap, like a lot cheaper than Pokemon, where I can buy like really good cards for like $15 or $10 or whatever, you know. So uh, so I would say that sorry, is your question, do I regret going into high end or do I
Would you
regret
redo it? If you were to
like
go back in time, would you redo your focus or would you change the direction you went with your where you are now?
I feel very happy with my collection and where it's at. I think that I'm still working. Listen, there's always frustration because I wish I had more money and there's impatience. There's always impatience
Mhm.
and some frustration. But the advice I was given before, like I try to repeat that to myself, right? Patience. Like you're gonna be here for a long time. Enjoy yourself, have fun, be generous, connect with people. You don't have to get it all at once. Those types of things are key for me. So no, I think that I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. There's definitely some tweaking I want to do. There's some things I want to sell, some things I'm looking to buy. But overall, I feel like my collection's in a good place, and I have a good mix of sort of lower end and higher end stuff. I think if I was a business, from a business perspective, I don't know, I probably still have pretty good inventory. Like
Mhm.
if I started a Pokemon business, I would have like something for everything, everyone across all generations, and it would probably be a pretty decent store. So I think that it would be okay. But if I was really trying to optimize, there are probably a number of items that are not super liquid, and I probably wouldn't have bought those. But I really like them, and I don't care what people think,
Yeah.
and so again, I'm a collector at the end of the day, so I'm not
Yeah.
super concerned or worried about that. Um, it does make it though that there are parts of my collection that are very difficult to liquidate. Would be very difficult
Mhm.
to liquidate and find the right person to pay the price that I'd be comfortable with. And so this is not the stock market where I can press a button.
Yeah.
So
And that's the hard part that I think that a lot of people make that mistake is that, and I see it all the time, even people I talk to, when it comes down to it, is they think that they can just go sell something tomorrow. And it's true. In my opinion, the more towards the modern stuff you get, that's truer and truer. But as you start getting away from that modern stuff and you start going back in time, even WotC, when you start getting into graded and more niche in particular, the more specific you get on things, sometimes it's no longer liquid. It is actually very much a solid investment that, you could be waiting years sometimes to find the right buyer to be able to purchase some of that stuff. And so it's not like a stock market. You can't just go, "Oh yeah, I need to sell 100 shares today to pay for this." And you hit the enter button and it's done. 24 hours later there's money sitting in your bank account for whatever you need. it's
Yeah, I
not
mean,
like that.
I have low pop, middle generation or niche Japanese stuff that could be valued anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000,
Yep.
right? And like probably if I valued it and put it up for 4,000 to 5,000, it would sell
Hmm.
fairly quick. And if I but I want the 10,000, and I'm going to wait for that, and I might not ever get like it might take, as you just said, years to find the right
Yeah.
person who's willing to buy that one of one, one of one in terms of um, so that's the situation. And if a buyer like that comes along, then I tend to sell those items because the price is really really good, and I can buy. There's so many other options. And again, if I had millions and millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars, I just would never sell anything ever. There'd be
The
zero sell,
whole
because
house would
I
just be a Pokemon museum.
yeah. So but I'm not in that situation, and so I have to be pragmatic.
Yep. Yeah, I know the feeling. It is what it is. I mean, some things are what you want, and sometimes you purchase them just for the mentality that I'm going to enjoy this for a little bit, and I'm going to use it for leverage to get what I want in the long run.
Yeah, and having millions and being able to buy anything, everything all at once, like would also take potentially some of the joy and the fun out of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's also the point of like, although that would be really fun and sounds great, and you would go on like a really sick, amazing shopping spree, and you'd just be surrounded by like, oh my god, I
Yeah.
have like all of the grails. I mean, that would be cool. It also takes away from like the many many years process that most of us are on to own one of those cards,
Oh
let
yeah.
alone all of them.
Being patient, waiting it out, on the hunt, always watching when you get, watching for that every day, typing it, or every 3 4 days, typing it into a search engine to see what
Right.
pops up. I mean, it wouldn't be any fun because then you could just sit there and go out on Facebook page and go, I've got $10 million, give me what you got. And all of a sudden everything you wanted would show up out of the woodwork.
For
So
sure.
so yeah, I definitely agree. I think it would take a lot of fun out of it. And I put that question on there because I'm yet to find someone that says they would change. But it's just curious that it's a point of reference to show people that, most of us that we started our journey would say, no, I'm happy with the direction I went. The reason I went there is I fell in the reason that I did it, and I'm continuing to do it, and I love doing it, and that's how you build. And that's just everybody's gonna find their own path. And once they get going in it, I mean, there are a lot of new people. It's amazing how many people still in my comments on Facebook at LGS as I'm finding after this boom. I was worried that we would see such a reduction in people just disappearing and nobody would come back, that it would just end up destroying this hobby potentially in the future. But since this whole thing, you're still seeing people come in. I'm talking to new people all the time that are just, yeah, I'm just starting into the hobby. I love doing this and it's so much fun. And it's like, that's great. I'm glad to see these people continuing to come in and see new people come in, even though the market's dying or slowing down. And, you know, the bubbles pretty much started gone back. I mean, if you look at the numbers, we're right back to where we were end of 2019, early 2020, when it comes down to pricing and market in most of the areas.
We're still quite a bit up from there, like way
We're
up.
still, but we're coming closer to it. I mean, if you were to watch the natural progression, we're actually not too far off, surprisingly.
I mean, even the worst stuff is still triple value, at least. When we're talking about
Okay.
and when we're talking about
Yep.
anything that is like WotC, middle
Mm-hmm.
generation, set cards, trophy card, like there's gonna be I don't think you'd be able to find a single card that hasn't
Tripled.
triple fish. Because like
I
some of the
guess I
stuff
should.
first has been like shadowless in first edition. Now that's all the way back down, and that's still like we're still talking like triple-ish.
Yeah.
Now it depends. In 2020, if you had picked 2020 like the summer of 2020, then maybe
Yeah.
there are going to be some things maybe it's only doubled or even less than doubled. But if we're talking like 2019, I mean it's yeah
No, I
probably
was thinking like right around
probably
that
not.
June period in 2020. Right before that boom when we were seeing the natural kind of almost it was more natural because people weren't quite getting the stimulus money. We didn't have everything with Logan Paul, but we were still seeing ever since Middle Sun and Moon that nice progression upwards of Pokemon in general. We're closer to that point. I want to say a lot of the stuff. I mean, if you go back to like first edition stuff, yeah, that's way out of the ballpark. And some of that stuff is way above that numbers. But if you look at even want to say black and white, moving forward, a lot of that stuff is kind of settled back. Booster boxes and sealed product, not so much. Some of that stuff is just huge. But if you look at like the singles market and a lot of the graded market on those cards, they've kind of settled down back into where you would almost, it's like you see the chart and it's like boom, and then it kind of comes back and you're seeing just a little bit offset, but not the crazy way up that we were a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can find some examples. I mean, I think, yeah, it's not worth like nitpicking because I think
No.
I'll get into August. There are definitely cards from like WotC sets, for example, that are close-ish to the prices before Logan Paul jumped in. Yeah, as far as a lot of middle gen, that's not what I'm seeing, but there are going to be examples like Hidden Fates, for example, has come back down. Like there are examples of like when we get out of middle gen and we talk more modern stuff, particularly sets like within that window, and Sun and Moon, for example, like a lot of Sun and Moon cards are the same exact price they were then, as they are now. So, but whatever. But yeah,
I mean, you could sit there and pick bubble and everything else.
It's definitely come way back down. I mean, when we talk about there are plenty of cards, right, that have fallen 80, 90% back down after jumping 20 times in value. So they're still up double or whatever. But it's been a considerable roller coaster for some items. I could tell you that much.
Oh, it's been crazy for some items. I mean, you just sit there and look at.
Yeah.
It's just been nuts. It's been really hard sometimes even to predict what things are going to do.
Oh, of course.
So it's been.
I hope we look back on this time and we say now was a nice time to start buying, right?
Yep.
Slowly buying. I don't think it's going to end up being like, oh my God, you gotta buy, like, it's just going to rocket ship or anything. But I think hopefully we will look back and be like, the economy, it was only a year or so recession. It wasn't this 2.5, really terrible. And we see, a year from now, things looking a little bit brighter. And if you had bought sort of now or in a year, about the same, roughly, that would be great. And because it takes a really long time to buy cards at good value, you need to start now. Like you can't wait. Like you're not just going to be able to buy everything in a great auction in a year from now, if that's the best possible time to buy. Like it takes a while to find those good auctions, to find those good. So why I tell people that if you really love this stuff, I don't think it's unreasonable to be nibbling a little bit and trying to find those really good deals in this market as you're sort of like with the plan of like, I'm going to be able to budget and spend that much for like the next few years to build my collection. I don't think that's unreasonable. It also might not work out for sure financially. No one can guarantee anything, but I think that that's a reasonable plan. That is all I can say is that is what I would be doing if I was just getting into the hobby over the last couple of years. That would be my plan.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part and it's a great plan for someone doing the hobby for sure. The biggest thing is that some of us have been here for 3, 4, 8 years. You ask us how to get back into the hobby, or when you first start out, it's really difficult to remember how exactly you did it sometimes. And how we did it when you came back into the hobby 3 to 8 years ago does not apply exactly how it's going now. I mean, things are so different from where it was even in 2019 that I would have to sit down and completely re-strategize. If you gave me another $3,000 and told me you got to can't use any of your old stuff, it's all got to be put away, and you have to start over with only $3,000 in the hobby, how would you do it? I would probably take a good 4 months to reanalyze everything to figure out what direction I want to go. How do I want to use that to my advantage and be able to get what I want, the way I want to, and the best cost possible to do so.
Sure.
So, but that was the last question, Jake. So if you've got anything else that's come up, I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of information, so it was a really good discussion.
No, man, I think I'm good. Thank you for hanging out. It was a fun conversation, and I appreciate everyone who's watching this now and made it to the end. subscribe to this channel.
Yeah, and of course, I put the link down below in the description for Jake's channel for anybody that has not subscribed to him. Of course, that'll be there for Pokenomics. Once again, great channel for your market information and that kind of market investment and that kind of information. You do have some really good insight, and you have some really good information and discussions with lives that you have on YouTube. So what's going on in the market.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
Other than that, well, thank you everybody for joining us once again. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button, and make sure you subscribe to Jake's channel. And other than that, we will see you next time here on Northwoods TCG.